Alrighty, we have the full slate action for MLS Matchweek 18 again, which means that there's going to be 12 games. There's going to be 3 on Friday, there's going to be 7, I believe, on Saturday, and there's going to be 2 on Sunday. And we also have 5 midweek games next week. So, yeah, the MLS gods are making me work for these next couple of days in terms of how many games that it is, but that's all part of this season when they decide to shorten the season and make the fixture list much more congested than it used to be in past season. But with that being said, let's actually talk about the first game, which is one of the free Friday games. And the first one is actually FC Cincinnati versus RSL that starts at 7:30. But I'm actually going to start with TFC versus Minnesota, which starts about half hour later than this game. So TFC, of course, coming into this game, they have a record of 3-1-1. Minnesota, they have a record of 3-1-2. Toronto, of course, lost in that hard-fought game between them and the Sounders away 3-2. While Minnesota also had a high-scoring game that they were in last week, but they drew to NYCFC in the inaugural game at Allianz Field 3-3. The assist leader for TFC, Pozuelo, no surprise with 4 assists so far this season. Osorio with 3, De Leon with 3, Chapman with 2, and Aro with 2. As for Minnesota, Quintero with 3 assists, Mentoria with 2 assists, Engineer Rodriguez with 1, Ethan Finley with 1, and Romero Ibarra with 1 assist. And, for TFC, certainly they want to bounce back after what happened last week. It was certainly a very tough loss for them. In many ways, I feel like they really it was pretty harsh that they didn't get any point out of that game, consider they played very well against the Sounders. But, they have a chance to get all 3 points here against Minnesota. And, for Minnesota, this is probably going to be the toughest road game that they are going to be facing. I mean, so far Minnesota on the road has definitely been kind of un-Minnesota-like of how they are able to pick up points and able to get wins on the road like they have never done in the first 2 seasons that they are in MLS. But having said that, those wins and those points that they pick up on the road are against very weak teams. This TFC team is not a weak team. So something tells me TFC, they definitely are going to come into this game and certainly want to avenge themselves after what happened last week. And Minnesota, they just got to prepare that it could get ugly in this game. I'm not sure if Quintero is going to be back for them in this game. Obviously, Darwin Quintero has been out for the last couple of weeks, which was actually probably one of the big factor of why, they didn't really quite well, they did win against the Redbulls, but they didn't get all 3 points against NYCFC. I mean, if he was there, maybe they could have scored a couple more goals, even though they scored 3 goals in that game. Well, they actually scored 2. One of them was just an absolute gift that NYCFC basically gave them. But next up, Cincinnati, they play against RSL. So Cincinnati, after the first couple of weeks where they were off to just a dream start and was kind of like on cloud nine, all of a sudden in these last couple of weeks, they are kind of falling back down to earth and have lost a couple of games. Last week, of course, they lost LAFC away 2-0. While for RSL, their record is 2-1-4. They finally ended their winless streak by beating Orlando City 2-1 at home. In terms of the assist leader for FC Cincinnati, Sayev with 2 assists right now, and then there's 4 guys that's currently tied with 1 assist. Ledesma, Darren Maddox, Kakuta Mane, and Burton all tied with 1 assist. As for RSL, there's actually 5 guys that is tied for 1 assist. Saucedo, Bear, Severino, Rusnak, and Herrera all tied with 1 assist. And when you look at this game, certainly for FC Cincinnati, I think they would definitely look at this game and say that they can definitely get 3 points in this game. RSL have not been, I wouldn't say they've been overly very terrible, but they haven't been good at all. And especially on the road where they have really struggled. And for FC Cincinnati, they already dropped a couple of points so far at home. They need to really start get all 3 points at home for the first time, and well, not the first time, but they have got all 3 points at home back in their first ever home game against Portland. But they need to pick up some home points so that they can put a little bit pressure off of their road form, and this is one of those games where it's perfect for them to pick up all 3 points, consider they are playing a team that is not doing very well, especially on the road. But next up, it's the Galaxy playing against Houston, and I call this game the hidden gem of this match week because of all the talks about LAFC versus Seattle and also Columbus playing against Portland because it's like the Caleb Porter derby. This one is probably a hidden gem one because both of these teams are actually really, really good. The Galaxy, their record is 5-0-1, while Houston, they are one of the 2 remaining teams that is unbeaten so far in MLS. They have a record of 4-1-0. And also, by the way, this is the rematch of probably one of the biggest bottle job you will ever see a MLS team do, with the Galaxy losing 4-2 against the Dynamo, where they were leading 2-0 in that game. And then in the second half, they decided that they thought that cruising along in the second half will just get themselves in the playoffs. And little did they know, they gave up 4 straight goals. And not only they kissed that game goodbye and kissed a chance to win that game goodbye, but they also kissed their season goodbye because that loss basically means that they were out of the playoff. And I know I am going to mention that again, and I know Galaxy fan is going to downvote me and going to be disliking me in this video, but hey, I'm a rival fan of the Galaxy. I have to really roast them in some ways, and knowing the fact that I am kind of a little bit salty, the fact that the Galaxy are once again good again, sometimes you need to try to find something in the past that can at least roast them a little bit before acknowledging that they're actually a very good team. Of course, the Galaxy won against Philly 2-0 at home. I believe that is actually their 4th straight win after they beat Philly last week. Well, Houston, of course, beat the Quakes 2-1 at home. And in terms of the assist leader for the Galaxy, Fletcher with 2 assists, Alvarez with 1, Alessandrini with 1, Boateng with 1, and Zlatan with 1 assist. For Houston, Manotas actually have 4 assists so far, and you wouldn't think Manotas would be in the assist leader chart, but more on the goal scoring leader chart, consider the fact that he is a goal scorer. But this season, he tends to be more of kind of like that creative player more than the lethal finisher that he showed last season. And then, of course, Albert Velez with 3 assists, Kyoto with 1, Thomas Martinez with 1, and Mino Figueroa with 1 assist. And this is definitely a very, very interesting game. Both of these teams are very good. And in some way, both of these teams are kind of identical because, both of these teams have very good attack. With the Galaxy, we all know that they have Zlatan, and Zlatan just cannot stop scoring goals right now. And for Houston, you got Manotas, Elise, and Kyoto. Certainly, probably one of the most underrated front 3 that is in the league right now. But, when you look at the defense for both of these teams, yeah, they are there is definitely some issue with both of these defense. The Galaxy, we're still seeing those bad giveaway that they have throughout these first couple of games, and most of the time they have got away with it. And it's the same thing with Houston. They also made a couple of bad mistakes on the defensive end. But having said that, because both teams are very good on the attack and also the defense is not very good, something tells me that this could be a firework kind of game where it's going to be a very high scoring game. And I also think that this could be a game where, I think for Houston, this game means a little bit more to them than it would be for the Galaxy, because for Houston, they're 4-1-0. They're one of the 2 teams that is unbeaten right now, but they're not really getting a lot of praise, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they probably have the easiest schedule so far this season. I mean, they've been playing a lot of home games, and the only road game that they play, which was against Colorado, they won 4-1 in that one, but it's Colorado, so the schedule is going to get tougher for Houston. This game will really give them a big test to show whether or not if Houston is actually for real or not. And Yeah, this is definitely going to be a very interesting one. This is one that I'll definitely pay attention. And like I said, don't be surprised if the score line is going to be very wacky and it's going to be very high score because both of these teams can score goals. But next up, Chicago. They play against the Rapids. So Chicago, of course, are 1-3-2. And Colorado, they are 0-2-5, and they're one of the three teams that is winless so far. I know last week I said they were one of the three teams that was winless, and Vancouver, of course, got their first win. It turns out before Vancouver got that first win against LAFC, there was actually 4 teams in the league that is still winless. So with Vancouver winning in the midweek against LAFC, that means Colorado is now one of the 3 teams that is still winless so far this season. Chicago, of course, drew to Vancouver at home 1-1 last Friday, while Colorado, of course, lost to DC United at home 3-2. In terms of the assist leader for Chicago, Frankowski with 2 assists, Grata, I think that's how you pronounce, with 1 assist, Katai with 1, McCarty with 1, and Sapon with 1. For Colorado, Benny Feilhaber with 2, Kellen Acosta with 2, Tommy Smith with 1, Cole Bassett with 1, and Cerna with 1 assist. And for Chicago, this is another big opportunity where they can get 3 points in this game. I mean, last week I thought that they were potentially going to get 3 points, consider the fact that they were playing a Vancouver team that wasn't very good. And once again, in that game, they had trouble in terms of putting the ball in the back of the net. And although they were able to kind of come back after going down 1-0 to salvage a draw, you would think that the Fire would not be very happy the fact that they drop points at home against a team that they should win. And it's the same thing here where, they're playing against a Colorado team that, as I said many times this season, they have definitely looked a little bit better than they were last season, but yet the results are not showing. And I think lately they are started to kind of look a little bit like last season where things just kind of fall apart for them. And it's a lot of that has to do with the defense of this team. Colorado, they definitely have a lot of decent goals scored, but it's the defense that is the huge issue for Colorado. They've been leaking goals at the back like they were last season when they leaked so many goals at the back, and that is one of the reasons why they are really struggling right now. And add to the fact that Colorado, whenever they go on the road, yeah, it's you usually do not see them get all 3 points. It is very rare you see the Rapids go on the road and they're able to get at least 3 points or even a point out of the game. They're pretty much like the Quakes where they just always tend to struggle on the road. So I expect for Chicago to get a win in this game, and I think they definitely should get a win in this game considering their record is also not very good. And Chicago, I don't think the record really tells the fact that this team is not really a bad team, but it's just that there's always tends to be a problem with this team when they play a game. It's either they just cannot put the ball into the back of the net, or it's just the problem we've been talking about in the preseason where the defense just leak goals left and right. But next up, it's the Union. They are going to be playing against Montreal. So the Union, of course, lost in the last game against the Galaxy. Their record, by the way, is 3-1-3. While Montreal, of course, won against Columbus 1-0 at home, which was their home opener. Their record now is 3-2-2. In terms of assist leader for the Union, Akam with 2 assists, Izinho with 1, Pico with 1, Medunian with 1, and Wagner with 1 assist. For Montreal, Urruti leads the list with 3 assists, Novello with 1 assist, Dallo with 1 assist, Azara with 1 assist, and Tydier also have 1 assist. And for Philly, they definitely want to bounce back after losing to the Galaxy. And things were definitely looking very good for the Union. I mean, they won 3 in a row before that loss against the Galaxy. So certainly they want to get back on track. But they are playing against a Montreal side that, Montreal are kind of... I don't want to say that they haven't really looked good, because if I say that they haven't looked good, then why are they picking up all these points on the road and able to get a win against Columbus in the last game? And I think maybe the right way to describe Montreal right now is that they are squeezing every last bit of kind of quality that they have in their team. I mean, these last couple of weeks without Piatti, you can clearly tell this Montreal team are struggling like crazy, and they've been getting a couple of nil-nil draw and kind of rode their luck a couple of times in the defensive end to get resort. But having said that, I don't know if Piatti will be back in this game. And even if he's not back in this game, will we actually see the debut of Omar Brownie? Yes, that's right. Omar Brownie, the kid that, of course, was playing against Independiente and one of the big star of the Cinderella run that Independiente had in CCL, have now officially signed with the Impact. And it will be interesting to see whether he is going to fill in that role that Piatti is in right now. And, if he, of course, shine for Montreal, then maybe Montreal has found a replacement for Piatti. But again, this is definitely going to be a tough game for them because they were playing away against the Union, and the Union definitely want to bounce back from that loss against the Galaxy, so that at least they will show the fans that, that Galaxy loss was just kind of something that is kind of an outlier. We are really doing very well with this new pressing system that we are running right now. But next up, and the final game on this board before I switch boards, is Orlando City. They play against the Whitecaps. As I mentioned, the Whitecaps, of course, they won their first game during this midweek against LAFC, but now they have to travel all the way across the other side of the country on short rest to play against Orlando City, who is 2-3, and they lost to RSL away in the last match 2-1. In terms of assist leader, Nani with 4 assists for Orlando City, Mueller with 2 assists, Matinho with 2, Dwyer with 2, and Patino with 1 assist. For Vancouver, surprisingly, they only have 3 assists so far this season, which I think that's probably the lowest amount of assists by any team in MLS. But the 3 guys that's been able to get assists for Vancouver are PC, Reyna, and also Imbone Kwan, who, of course, scored the winning goal in the last game against LAFC. And for Vancouver, obviously they're definitely coming off on a high by beating LAFC and being the best team in the league. But something tells me that, yes, they're definitely going to be coming into this game with a lot of momentum. But we've seen before where teams, when they're able to beat a very good team, and then the next week they pretty much just kind of fall flat on their face. And it also doesn't help the fact that it's a short week for them and they have to fly all the way across the other side of the country, which, as I mentioned before in previews in the past, teams that always have to fly across the other side of the country for a short week are usually going to struggle and usually are going to find it very difficult to get all 3 points, especially if you are the road team. So for Orlando City, they definitely want to take advantage of this. Orlando City this season, they have just been very inconsistent. I mean, there's been times where they have looked very good, and then there's just times where they look like 2018 Orlando City. So it's really hard to tell what kind of Orlando City team would come out in this game against Vancouver. If they are the Orlando City team that of course won those games against Colorado and who was the other team that or the Redbulls, yeah, if they are those team that won those games, then they should be able to beat Vancouver in this one. But that being said, let's change boards right now. So next up, Atlanta. So they finally got their first win last week against New England. They beat them 2-0, so that must mean all thing is back with Atlanta, right? Not so fast, because this week they are going to be playing against FC Dallas, who has a record of 4 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. And Dallas, of course, won their last match against Portland 2-1 at home. The top assist leader for Atlanta, there's only 3 guys that is in the top assist leader. That just shows you how much struggle that Atlanta is going through in terms of goal scoring. Villalba with 2 assists, Gresso with 2 assists, and Lorenovitz with 1 assist. And I believe with 5 assists, that actually ties with with Vancouver as the fewest assists that a team has had so far this season. While for FC Dallas, Ferreira with 2 assists, Barrios with 2 assists, Baji with 1 assist, Palmico with 1 assist, and Hedges with 1 assist. And, for Atlanta, this could be a game that will be the moment of truth of we're going to find out if Atlanta is truly back. Because, like I said last week, yes, they won against New England, and they definitely looked very convincingly by beating them, and probably should have scored more than the 2 goals that they did against New England if they were a little bit better in terms of finishing. But it was against New England, which was the worst team in the Eastern Conference, and now they have to play against a Dallas team that, this season have shown some moments of greatness and also have shown some very kind of bad moments, and especially with Dallas, a team that this season have been kind of struggling on the road and that they haven't really got a win so far on the road. This is a game where Atlanta needs to prove that they can, of course, step into this game and also get a win. And plus the fact that this is a game at home. I mean, Atlanta has already dropped a couple of points at home. The last thing they want to do is drop more points at home. This team last season was unbeatable at home, but so far in the first 2 games, they look very human. And like I said about Atlanta, if they want to show that they're back into their form that they were last year, and they want to show people that the reason why they're struggling right now is because of the distraction of CCL, they need to start winning in this game. And the other thing that I will also be interested to see with Atlanta is what exactly is Frank de Boer going to come out in this game with his tactics and his starting 11, because the tactics that he's been using in the last couple of games, he's been kind of tingling with it. And we've seen before where Atlanta, when they finally got it right in terms of the tactics, and when Frank de Boer got it right in terms of the tactics, he doesn't stick with it. He decided to change it in the next game, and it just goes completely wrong. So we'll see if Frank de Boer decides to stick with the same tactics that got Atlanta the victory against New England, or is it going to be like last year, or not last year, but last couple of games where they look like they got it right in terms of the tactics, and then they basically switched it up just to see if it will work out against other good teams. But next up is the Caleb Porter derby. Columbus, they of course are playing against Portland. Obviously, Caleb Porter, longtime Portland Timbers manager, now coaching with the Columbus Crew. And what's also interesting about this game is that this game is actually going to be at Montreal Stadium, which is the same place that Caleb Porter won the MLS Cup against Columbus a couple of years ago. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of interesting headlines in this game. And you better believe Caleb Porter, he definitely wants to beat his former employees. For Columbus, they are coming into this game with a record of 4-1-2. While Portland, yeah, the less said about their record, the better, because they are really struggling right now. Columbus, of course, did lose 1-0 away to Montreal in the last match, but Portland, of course, they also lost 2-1 against FC Dallas, and I believe that's the 5th straight loss that Portland has suffered. Yikes, that is not good. Top assist leader for Columbus, Higuain with 3, Santos with 2, Jimenez with 1, and Robinho with 1. For Portland, Valeri with 3, Guzman with 1, Chara with 1, and Blanco with 1. So both of these teams don't really have a lot of guys that is putting up assists. And, like I said, Caleb Porter, he really wants to win this one. He wants nothing more than get one over his former employee. And it's not saying that Caleb Porter doesn't like the Timbers. He was a long time coach out there. But anytime when you are a coach that is coaching a different team and you're facing against your former employees, you really want to win against them. It just gives you this extra motivation. It's kind of like a player where they're facing against their former team, and probably their former team decided to sell them because they didn't think that he was good enough, and it just gives that extra motivation that, yeah, when they're playing against their former employees, I'll make sure that I'll try extra hard to get one over them, and something tells me that's what Caleb Porter wants in this game. But other than that, I think this will be very interesting, and, for Portland, I don't know how this is gonna go. Like so far this season, it has just been a miserable season. But we'll see. We'll see if they can get something out of it. When you look at this game, it looked like most likely Columbus is gonna get this win, and Caleb Porter is gonna get one over Portland. But you never know. Crazy things has happened in MLS this season, so don't book that Columbus and Caleb Porter is definitely gonna get a win against Portland and against his former team. But next up is my Quakes team. They are 1-0-5 this season, as they are going to be playing against SKC, who their record is 2-3-1, which it does sound very ugly with Sporting KC in terms of their record. But having said that, Sporting KC, they've been battling CCL and MLS play, and we have seen so far most team that is battling with CCL and MLS play, they usually are kind of off to a slow start, except for Houston. Somehow, Houston, they have been having a good record, but having said that, Houston has had a very easy schedule. They have the easiest schedule out of the other team that had to play in CCL and have to balance league play, and Sporting KC, of course, is dealing with that throughout the season. The Quakes, of course, they lost 2-1 against Houston away. Sporting KC, of course, drew 2-2 against the Redbulls. They almost lost that one against the Redbulls, but once again, Gianluca Busio, which I think at some point, Busio should just get a starting position. I mean, he has scored like 3 straight goals. He's been kind of becoming kind of like an Alphonso Davies kind of type of player, where when Alphonso Davies was 16-year-old and he was scoring goals for Vancouver like fun, yeah, looked like Busio could potentially be that kind of player. Top assist leader for the Quakes, there are 5 players that currently have 1 assist. Shea Salinas with 1, Vodka with 1, Erickson with 1, Godoy with 1, and Christian Espinoza with 1 assist. For Sporting KC, Roger Espinoza with 2 assists, Gerso with 2, Russell with 2, Gutierrez with 1, and Zusi with 1. And, as a Quakes fan, I don't expect much from this game. If we can get out of this game with a draw, I will certainly be very happy, because something tells me Sporting KC, now that they're done with CCL and now that they can just focus on the league right now, they are going to be very hungry in terms of getting points. And, the Quakes, the last couple of games for the Quakes, they have definitely shown some promise. And, even in the last game against Houston where they lost, they definitely play much better than what I've seen in the past when they lose on the road, and also this season on the road. But again, Sporting KC, this is a team that is going to be very hungry to get a win. And if you guys remember last season when Sporting KC played the Quakes at Avaya Stadium, they absolutely obliterated the Quakes 5-1 in that game. And that was also the same game that led to the firing of Michael Starhay. So, yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence in this game, but I'm going to stick with what I said in the last game and what I've been saying with the Quakes. If they give their effort in this game, whether win, draw, or loss, if they show the effort that they can hang with Sporting KC and able to try to fight it out, then I will be very happy with that, because, the quality of Sporting KC and the Quakes is so wide that, it's even wider than the largest outdoor bar that is at Avaya Stadium. And, again, I don't expect much from this game, and I think Sporting KC should be able to get the win in this one. And also, by the way, one more thing, there is going to be a protest in this game about the ownership and also the front office. As I mentioned before, I am not going to be joining this protest. And, when I did that video on Thursday, there was actually the leader of that protest actually contacted me and told me all these kind of information and kind of clarify a little bit of some of the things that I talked about. And one of the things that he said is that when they decided to do the protest and chanting at the front office member as they leaving the stadium, they are not going to chant against those kind of low rank kind of position that is part of the Quakes, so like fan relation team, or even the janitor, or even the concession stand people. They're not going to chant against them, which I am very glad that they said that because, as I mentioned before, I feel like if they're going to chant everybody in that front office, including those low rank kind of people that doesn't really have a lot to do with the Quakes, but they're more kind of like just a marketing kind of team. Yeah, I feel like that is very, very cruel and very harsh, and I just don't like that idea. But they clarify me saying that they're only going to protest and they're only going to basically chant at those higher rank, those kind of like owners and some people or some official that has a lot to do with the Quakes. And I bet even Jesse Fornelli, if he walks down, he's going to expect a lot of booing and a lot of chanting from angry Quakes fans from that protest. But moving on into the next game, New England. They play against the Redbulls. So speaking of bad teams, New England is one of them. They are in the bottom of the Eastern Conference. In the last game, they lost to Atlanta at home by a score of 2-0, while the Redbulls, of course, they drew 2-2 at Sporting KC, but they probably should have got a win in that game, considering they had the lead late in the game. Top assist leader for New England, Jones, Delama, Anababa, Bunbury, and Hill all with 1 assist. While for the Red Bulls, Murillo with 2 assists. Velat, of course, with 1 assist, but he will be out for the rest of the season for that torn ACL. Kaku also with 1 assist. He also will potentially be out for a while because of that sinister incident in that Sporting KC game. Again, there's still no report of whether or not what kind of amount of suspension Kaku is going to get. Obviously, he is going to be suspended in this game because of the red card. So I'm assuming next week when Disco basically hand out the fines and suspension, that's when they basically say how many games Kaku is going to receive. Because we usually see whenever a player gets a red card, Disco tends to not really just like adds into the suspension of how many games or how many fines that a player receive a red card would get. They usually like wait till the next week just to make it kind of like double jeopardy in terms of how, oh, you thought you were done with your suspension, right? Well, here's one more game for you. And in this case, most likely Kaku is going to get at least 5 games. Anything less than 4 games for Kaku, I will really question some of the people that is in the disciplinary committee of how in the world do they handle these violent content. Because, again, that was absolutely sinister and absolutely disgusting of what Kaku did in that game against Sporting KC. Betancourt with 1 assist in this game. Kaseri Jr. with 1 assist in this game. And, both of these teams, they're definitely struggling throughout this season. But I think for the Red Bulls, they really feel like this is a game that they have to win. If they do not beat against New England, a team that pretty much everybody has been able to get all 3 points against them, yeah, something tells me that most likely that drum of Thierry Henry coming to the Red Bulls is going to get louder and louder, and Chris Armours might be actually the first guy to be fired at this new season, which kind of shocks me because I didn't think that he was going to get fired this season with the way how slow that the Red Bulls have started this season. But next up, DC, they play against NYCFC, one of the 3 teams that is still winless in this season. That is NYCFC. And both of these teams, of course, meet earlier in the season. It ended in a 0-0 draw when this game was at Yankee Stadium. DC, of course, won 3-2 away to Colorado, so they bounced back after a bit of a rough last 2 games where they didn't score a goal. Well, for NYCFC, they drew 3-3 away to Minnesota. And in terms of the top assist leader for DC, Rooney with 3 assists, Mourinho with 3 assists, Rodriguez with 2, Acosta with 2, and Pines with 1. For NYCFC, Jonathan Lewis, Tajiri Sharadi, Sweat, Castellano, and Maxi Morales, all with 1 assist in this game. And, I think DC is definitely going to be the heavy favorites because they are at home, and, I know they did have that 4-0 disaster against LAFC, and they also had that 0-0 draw against Montreal, although that was a game that they don't have Rooney. They should be able to win this game, and that they've been really solid at home. And against an NYCFC team that is definitely just heading into a downward spiral, and that they are kind of like the draw king of MLS. They just they have one loss so far this season, but they have draw 5 times this season. And some of the draws that they have got, you would think that they should have got a win. Just like last week against Minnesota, where yes, they did came back going down twice in that game, but they gifted Minnesota one of the goal. I mean, Sean Johnson with that absolute shocking howler, and if that wasn't a howler, NYCFC would have got their first win against Minnesota. So, things are definitely not going well for NYCFC, and there's definitely a lot of frustration with this team. But yeah, they're going to be playing against a DC side that, they're back at the top of the Eastern Conference. And, for DC, so far, they have done pretty well in terms of some of the road games, but some of the road games that they've been playing are against very easy teams. And I'm still very skeptical of whether or not I would put DC in this column where they're kind of like the contender of MLS Cup, because the fact that, yes, they have a good home record. If this team does not have Rooney, this team is basically like one of the worst team in the league. Like, Rooney is basically the glue of this team, and if he's not there, that team just completely falls apart. So it'll be interesting to see how DC will do in this game and for the rest of the season. But finally, it is time to talk about the marquee matchup of the week, the one that I think you all been waiting for, and obviously I saved the best for last, and that of course is LAFC versus the Seattle Sounders. And the funny thing about this game, both of these teams are going to be facing again the very next week in the second meeting. So this is almost like chapter 1 in terms of this season heavyweight fight. And LAFC, of course, their record is 6-1-1, while the Sounders, they're one of the 2 teams that is unbeaten at 5-1-0. And this would have been a matchup between 2 teams that is currently unbeaten, but unfortunately LAFC took a bit of a gamble against Vancouver, decided to not start most of their starters and kind of rest some of their starters so that they can prepare for this game. It did not pay off as they lost to Vancouver 1-0. And for the Sounders, they were able to hold on in a hard-fought win against TFC at home by a score of 3-2. In terms of the top assist leader, Vela leads the league with 5 assists, Dio with 3, Blessing with 3, Atuesta with 3, and Mark Anthony K with 2. For Seattle, Ladero with 4 assists, Victor Rodriguez with 2, Smith with 2, Rui Diaz with 1, and Jordan Morris also with 1 assist. And, this is definitely a heavyweight kind of matchup, and you could maybe even say that this could be a preview of the Western Conference Final if these 2 teams continue the way that they are going. And I don't know which team has more pressure coming into this game. I guess maybe for LAFC, knowing that they rest most of their starters and that they're kind of putting all their eggs in the basket for this game. Yeah, when you rest your guys and you have to sacrifice all 3 points and drop your first game of the season, it better be paid off when you play the next game, which is a very important game against the team that is right behind you in the standing. Well, for the Sounders, one thing I will say about the Sounders is that as good as they have been, there is definitely a huge weakness that I am noticing with the Sounders team. And one of the biggest weakness I'm noticing with this team has to be with the way that they're just so many times this season they have took their foot off the gas in the second half. We saw it against Colorado where they were up 2-0 early in the game, and then they kind of cruised the rest of the way. Colorado did kind of pressure them a little bit, but they were still able to hold on with a 2-0 lead. We saw it against Chicago where they were 3-0 up, and then all of a sudden decided to just think that that's game over, and then they find themselves now at a 3-2 situation, which, to be fair to them, they did a good job to able to get that 4th goal to seal all 3 points. We saw it against RSL where they got a 1-0 win, and then in the second half they basically completely took their foot off the gas and let RSL dictate the play, and RSL unfortunately couldn't get a goal there, and they were able to grind out a 1-0 victory. And then you kind of also saw it last week too against TFC where they were 3-1 up. TFC got the goal, and they were hanging on for dear life late in the game. Like TFC, Stephen Fry made a couple of decent saves, including that Pozuelo curler in stoppage time, and then TFC also hit the post late in the game. So, if there's one thing Seattle does kind of have a little bit of weakness, that, of course, is that they're taking their foot off the gas in the second half. Now, so far, they've been getting away with every single game that they have done this. But when you're playing against LAFC, especially on the road, and let's say if Seattle does have a 2-1 lead heading into the second half, or even like halfway through the second half, they cannot do what they've been doing throughout this season, where they can just take their foot off the gas and think that all 3 points are secure. Because this LAFC team not only is a team that is so deadly on the attack, but this team can definitely rally late in the game. We already saw twice this season when they're playing at the bank and they were able to get 2 stoppage time winner. So don't be surprised if LAFC does if they're down late in the game. Don't be surprised if they can able to rally back and at least get a point or even all 3 points against Seattle. And that with this weakness that the Sounders have been having with them kind of taking their foot off the gas, eventually, if they keep doing this, there's going to be one of those games where they are going to be made pay because of the fact that they took the foot off the gas way too early. But other than that, this should be a very exciting match. I expect there's going to be tons of goals in this game. Both defense is pretty good, but so is both attack. So maybe there won't be a ton of goal. I mean, usually when you have these kind of heavyweight matchup, it's kind of a little bit low scoring kind of game, except if both of those teams have kind of iffy defense, which I don't think both of these defense are that iffy. So yeah, it could be a low scoring game, it could be a high scoring game, but whatever it is, it's going to be a match that a lot of people is going to talk about. And like I said, this is only the first match of 2 that they are going to be playing in these 7 days. Chapter 2 is going to be next week when both of these teams are going to be playing again. This time it will be at CenturyLink Field and it's going to be in Seattle. So yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for my preview of this week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all of these games? What do you think is the marquee matchup of this week? And also let me know in the comments below of your prediction of all 12 of these MLS games from match week number 8. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys on Sunday for the review video.